Cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining. We really appreciate it. My name is Chad Flynn. I'm the product manager for Fenceline Pro here at TriHydro. It's been an incredible journey to travel the nation and to interact with all of you folks and to listen about your concerns on the refinery sector rule. Developing Fenceline Pro to address these concerns and assist in keeping you all in compliance has been very rewarding to me personally. And we will continue to hear what you have to say and where you think that we should go with Fenceline Pro. A quick note on the audio, please utilize the chat window for now to offer any feedback or ask questions. I have all of your lines muted, but what we'll do is later in the presentation, we'll open up the call for a discussion at the end. But for now, go ahead and just send us a chat if you've got something to say to us. And if we don't get to your question in time, please don't worry. Know that we will follow up with you after this call to address any concerns you might have. Okay, so let's get started. I'm also joined today by Carrie Ward, project manager here at TriHydro. I'm sure many of you have interacted with her along the way as we've gotten your programs up and running. And she'll be speaking a little bit later in the presentation. So what I'd like to do today is show you the latest enhancements to the platform. Then we'll step through the mobile app workflow to show you how you can potentially save some time in collecting field data. Then we'll go over what we know so far from the EPA reporting side. And we'll touch upon a Did You Know section where we highlight features that you may not know are there in the product. Then I'll show you the items that we have laid out on our roadmap. And then finally, we get to hear from you in our open discussion section. All right, so let's talk about the newest enhancements that we've been released and that our product team has been working hard on. First up is the enhanced flash report. So what we did with the flash report, again, we've listened to your feedback and we've incorporated that into this newest revised flash report. For those that are new to the flash report, this can be found either by signing up for the notification, so you'll automatically receive it every time new lab data is uploaded, or you can go into the reports tab and go pull up the flash report yourself. So what we've done is we've enhanced the layout, so we've got a better, more tabular summary of all the sample results for any given sample period. What we're also doing is we are highlighting any exceedances. So that is occurring in this pink color here. And then what we did is we acknowledged which one are the highest sample results and which one are the lowest sample results. So the highest one I'm arrowing in red and then the lowest down in green. So that's showing you the high value and the low value that we will be using to calculate that delta C for that sample period. We're also adding notes for which ones are the duplicates and both blanks, and spelling out non-detect for those non-detect results. So with that enhanced acknowledgement of the high and low, then we get to our delta C calculation down here. If that is above the EPA action level, we're highlighting it in red. And then if any of these rules have been hit in the calculation process, we're citing them down here in the footnotes. For example, 0 is being used here when the result is a non-detect. So that was a non-detect lowest sample result. So we're citing the rule where that is spelled out there. All right. The next update. So a couple of months ago, we sent out a survey to all of you asking, hey, if you've got data from your pilot studies, what do you want us to do with it? And many of you asked us to remove it, and some of you asked to keep it. But all of you said that the rolling average delta C calculation needs to begin right at that compliance date. So that's what we did. If you had any existing data, we kept it, but we only used the data after January 30th to calculate the rolling average delta C. So you can see in our trend chart here that this green delta C average line begins right here after compliance date. So we do have data pre-existing, but that does not affect where that calculation begins for the rolling average delta C. All right. Now we also heard from you guys that you wanted to be notified when your sample period delta C was above the EPA action limit. And this makes a lot of sense. So, this is the trigger for action at your facilities if you do pass that threshold. And since it's so important, I went ahead and I signed up all Fenceline Pro users to receive this notification. As always, you can manage your own notifications and turn this off if you wish. But for now, everyone has been subscribed to this notification because we think it's so important. All right, the last enhancement we wanted to highlight was an upgrade to the data synchronization in the mobile app. So some users were experiencing a longer than normal load time for their data. So we improved the way that we synchronize that data. So now loading up current site data, both from the database servers to the app and from the app to the servers, only takes a few seconds to complete. So that was another really important update that we just recently released. Okay, speaking of the mobile app, let's walk through the optimal field data collection workflow with the Fenceline Pro mobile app. So your field technician will log into the app while connected to the network. They get the latest data from the database and are given a status report on that data. So here you see that there are no pending changes. So that means that there's nothing new that needs to be uploaded. And then below that, you'll see why that's the case, because you're missing a duplicate sample, you're missing a blank, and you're missing the placement and collection information for each of these sample stations down the list. So this is just visual feedback for the field tech. We've built in the logic there, so it's smart enough to know what to do for method 325, and keeps the field techs abreast of what they need to do, or if they're ever missing any information, that will show up here. So what they'll do is they'll go ahead and hit the sample button. Okay, the next check we do here is to make sure that the field tech establishes equilibrium with the tubes. So just another compliance check we have built in here to verify that that method is being followed properly. Okay, once these dates and times have been confirmed, the tech is allowed to proceed to the sampling steps. All right, now here's where I want to just illustrate how easy it is to collect the field data with very, very minimal steps involved. Okay, so the tech is here at station number 1, DS1. You can see that there are 3 tubes. Tube 1, Tube 2, and Tube 3 have been deployed there. They show the date and time of when they were placed, and they show the sample type. So this was a primary, a blank, and a dupe. So all they need to do when they're at station number 1 to collect these is to hit this hollow collect clock. So they hit the collect here, here, and here, and that will show up as a solid blue check mark, meaning that that collection date and time has been stamped on those samples, and they're done. Okay, once they've done that, then they can go ahead and add the new sample that they will place at that station. So they hit the add sample button. Then they merely type in that tube ID. For example, this one's going to be tube number 4. And they can toggle this P button here. By default, P is the primary sample. That will toggle back and forth between primary, blank, and duplicate. So if they want to change that sample type, they just hit that button there. And then hit the green check mark to save that record. And then boom, we show the screen here. These top 3 have been collected. Tube 1, 2, and 3, they're collected. Tube 4 has been placed, and they're done at sample station number 1 and ready to proceed to sample station number 2, and so on throughout the perimeter of the fence line. Okay, after they have made their entire round and collected and placed their samples. They simply hit the back button to go back to the main page. We check the status, no errors or warnings, so they are ready to upload. They hit the upload button, and then that data is automatically available in Fenceline Pro for viewing and downloading the chain of custody. So let's take a look at that. So the app piece is really simple. You collect, put in the tube ID, and you place. So once that data has been uploaded, then field techs can log into Fenceline Pro on the website, and they can do two different things here. So they can email that chain of custody. So they will hit the eCOC. So this will email a copy of that chain of custody form directly to the lab. It also CCs them, so they have a copy in their own inbox as well. But this just gives the lab a heads up and a digital copy of the data so that they can have it and begin their processing. Then they will download the chain of custody form in an Excel format. So let's look at that. Okay, so when they hit the download chain of custody, this will take all of the, we'll give it a unique sample ID. We put in the sample station name. We insert the tube ID, tube ID 1, 2, 3, 4. The sample type, whether that's a primary sample or blank or duplicate. Then, of course, the start and stop times. And then Fenceline Pro also goes out to the weather data that's hooked up in the website, and it averages out the temperature and pressure for that time period. Okay, of course, the lab needs that for their calculations for lab results. So we're compiling that and including it automatically in the chain of custody form. So that's the optimal workflow for mobile field data collection with the mobile app. Saving time in a bunch of these steps in digitizing data and processing your chain of custodies. Now, we're here to offer our support too. We've had a couple questions on, where do I get the app? How do I log in? What's my username? And we're here to offer support. You can give us a call. We're available all day, every day. Also, if there are any questions while you're in the app, if you hit these 3 bars up here on the right, you get the menu down here where you can select support. And that will allow you to insert a support ticket directly to our help desk team, which again, we're available all day, every day, and we'll help you get to the next steps in understanding the mobile app. All right. The next topic we wanted to address, EPA reporting. So we know that the EPA report format is on everyone's mind, and it's on ours too. Unfortunately, we still have to wait for the final format to be published, but here's what we know so far. We've processed the current information that's in that spreadsheet, and we know that the data they're requesting is being securely stored in Fenceline Pro. So we've talked to our developers, and they let us know that parsing out our data into that tabbed spreadsheet will be a straightforward process. And I'm sure that makes you guys happy. I wouldn't want to be compiling a year's worth of spreadsheets in Excel to get to that Sedgry format. It looks a little convoluted in those 5 tabs, but fear not, Fenceline Pro will be hooked up and be able to create that tab spreadsheet for you. The one piece of data that we don't currently track is the state facility ID. So we'll be reaching out to y'all in the next month or so to get that from you, and we'll be storing that and integrate that into the platform so that we can produce the spreadsheet that you need that includes that identifier as well. So, rest assured, when the comments to this format have been addressed and the final technical correction is released, our team will jump on integrating that into Fenceline Pro. And the Sedgry deliverable at that point will be available on the Reports tab, and that data will be formatted correctly for download with just the click of a button. All right. Did you know? Did you know that the activity logs can be collected in the field and uploaded to Fenceline Pro? So you may ask, why would you want to do that in the field? Well, your field techs are your eyes and ears to the ground, so they know what's happening in the field in any given day. So, for example, we've seen a couple people use these, like, hey, there was a vac truck parked at station number 1 for a couple days, or there was a minor spill over by station 3. So anything that field techs think that may influence the results that you're seeing at those sample stations, that can be documented in the field. And again, these activity logs, I think, are pretty powerful because they have a time and a date stamp on them. And with method 325, your tubes are hung there for 2 weeks. The lab is going to take at least a week or so to process that data. So you're almost 30 days out by the time you get the results. So thinking back a month to figure out what was going on site, could be troublesome. So having that activity log stamped with what happened and when it happened, and cross-referencing that with the results you're seeing in Fenceline Pro can be pretty powerful to understand, what may have happened in the field. We also have folks using the activity logs for file storage. So we know some people that were collecting OGI video files around their facility at any given date and time. And they were cross-referencing these back into the activity log, again with a time and date stamp on there, so that they can cross-reference the OGI infrared stuff that they were seeing with the results that they had in Fenceline Pro. Or maybe you just wanted one repository for your regulatory documents, like your corrective action documents. So those could be stored in the activity logs as well. Did you know you can display benzene in either micrograms per meter cubed or ppbv? So that's a site setting, and we can adjust that for you. If you'd prefer to see your data in alternate units, let us know and we can set that up for you. Or did you know that you can receive text messages from Fenceline Pro? So, we kind of talked about the email notifications that can be delivered. Well, what if you wanted to see, a text message instead? You don't have email readily available, or your text messages will give you that the ding or the buzzer. If you've got your delta C for a sample period above the EPA action limit, maybe you want an email and a text message, because that's pretty important. So you can go ahead and sign up for both of those types of notifications. So does anybody have a favorite feature of Fenceline Pro they want to type in the chat window? If not, we'll go to the next slide here and then open it up later for discussions. All right. So where are we going with Fenceline Pro? We have heard a lot of really, really good feedback. And that's where we've gotten to, this far today, is because of this quality feedback that we have from you guys. And so we're going to continue to listen to that and build it out into the product. So in the near term, which is probably the next 1 to 2 months, we are working on the following 5 items here. So currently on the chain of custody, when you pull that up, the relinquished by is a static field that's kind of set already in the database on a lab by lab basis, but we want that to be more dynamic. So whoever downloads that chain of custody is typically the person that will be relinquishing those samples to the courier. So we want to be able to pull that relinquished by from the user's name who's logged in and then put it on the chain of custody. So that'll be coming up soon. And then we've heard from a number of folks that say, hey, I want to be able to set my start and stop dates in my trend charts. Because right now we've got a month or a quarter or a year, but you guys want to be able to set the date ranges on there on a case-by-case basis. So we're going to build that in there. So it's going to be configurable date ranges. I think by default, we will show a 1-year track of data, but then you can go in and select a different date range in there and then display that, and then also be able to download that to the JPEG or the PDF. We're looking at enhanced and streamlined security. So this is called single sign-on. And what that is an integration between your organization's security and the Fenceline Pro security mechanisms. So if you have, say, Active Directory as your domain accounts at your facility, we can integrate that into the authentication that's going on in Fenceline Pro. So you actually have a single sign-on. Once you're on that computer within your facility, you could just go straight to Fenceline Pro and you are logged in. So that's a great way that's going to enhance your access to the product. Now we've seen this. So I come from a GIS background or a cartography background, and I know that the labeling needs some work on the flash report and on the website maps. So I'm really pushing for this one. We've also heard from you guys that you want to see better labeling. Sometimes the labels stack up on each other, and that's no good. So we will be improving that and getting that out to the product shortly. And then on activity logs. So these are, right now the way it works is you enter in your activity log and then it just kind of lives there. And if you misspelled something or you put in the wrong date or the wrong file, you want to change that, currently you have to go through support and we'll help you address that. But we want to be able to have you guys edit those activity logs, so it just makes it more usable and flexible in the way that you display that log information. Okay, then way down the road, what are we looking at here? We have some scenarios where field techs are not necessarily refinery personnel, so their access to computers and information may not be the same as somebody that's sitting at a desk at that facility. And so what I mean here is, so they've got the mobile app and they're collecting the field data information, then they go to upload it, but then how do they get that chain of custody? And so, do you go and find a computer and you log in, download that chain of custody and print it out? Or do you make a phone call, have somebody help you with that? Or what if after you uploaded the data to Fenceline Pro, we automatically sent an electronic copy of the chain of custody directly to the lab from the mobile app? So, we've heard that this is a legal chain of custody to be able to electronically deliver that. And so that's one long-term goal that we have to really, really streamline that process. Field tech collects the data, shoots it up to Fenceline Pro, and it also goes over to the lab for them to process. And then lastly, on the long term, we've heard from, there's our neighbors in Canada, and then also with some other industry folks that they may be looking at tracking additional constituents at the fence line. Specifically up in Canada, they're looking to track 1,3-butadiene as well as benzene. So we're looking at how to best collect that data and store it, and then be able to analyze it and report it in Fenceline Pro. So being able to track multiple constituents over time and be able to report that out in one platform. All right, now I'm going to open up the phone lines here, and we want to hear from you. So let me go ahead and unmute everybody, and Carrie's going to help us ask some questions.
Oh, good morning, everybody. It looks like we have quite a few of you online today, and so that is wonderful to see. I was hoping if we haven't seen any questions here in the chat window that we could jump up to the notifications and maybe kind of start a little bit with those updates that Chad went over, and wanted to see if you guys had any questions in those areas. I'm not hearing from anybody. But it looks like we're all unmuted. So if you are having trouble chiming in, go ahead and just type in a chat question.
I like booze traveling, man. Well, you like your traveling part of it.
Yeah, so they didn't have it.
I just had a hard time believing that guy could drink that much.
It looks like we're hearing
Well,
somebody.
they got a. I'm sure they speak
Hello,
to that.
Carrie.
Hi,
Hi, it's Paul in Detroit. How are you?
I'm good, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just
Excellent.
two questions here, if I could.
Sure.
Looking at trends, it looks like my choice of time frame went away. Is there something going on?
Are you on the trends page?
Yeah, it shows up, it flashes, and then goes away. That for quarter or year or 2 years.
Okay. Are you first on the default chart that is the site snapshot?
On the main page, that's not there. On the trends tab, it's usually there, but I don't see it today.
Okay. Let's see if we can get Chad to pull up the page, and maybe we'll just kind of navigate that portion.
It's just something to look at, and I know most people, I guess some people had some questions on that, or at least making it user choosable for time frames.
Yeah.
The other question I
Okay.
had, if I could just leave you with that, is maybe you could talk us through how to enable a new field tech
Okay.
with getting the software and becoming a user.
I think that's a fantastic question, and I know that Chad would love to go through a demonstration of how to sign up a new user.
And we can do it privately if it's not a good public topic, but that's all I had for questions.
Okay, sounds good. So,
Hi, this is Matt Plass with BP Toledo. We recently purchased some property that borders our property, and I was just wondering if there was if you guys were planning, or if you're ever going to update the maps, the map portion, the photo, or the looks like a Google map photo of the property. We do need to move our locations out, and it doesn't show the. We had a lot of stuff, new buildings and stuff like that we added. So I need to move our locations. But is that map going to be updated, or can it be updated? I should ask.
Hey, Matt, this is Chad.
Hey.
Hey, so we are streaming in a mapping service from Esri. They're a online mapping company, and we're kind of at the mercy of when they're going to update their aerial imagery.
Oh, okay.
So it depends on where you're at in the part of the world, how often they update that. It could be on a 6-month cycle or 1-year cycle. But as soon as they do update it, it'll be streamed in for your site.
Okay.
But in terms of when you want to move your stations, just give us a holler and we'll update the latitude and longitude of those stations for you.
Perfect.
Yeah. Are you going to be calling them the same names or update the names?
Yeah, it'll be the same locations. It's just I have to move them out since it's now we do own property on a bit further out from that area. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Just let us know.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Okay, back to the question about adding a new user. So the folks that have administrative capabilities can go into the administration part of the site. So I'll just click on my name and go into the settings. Okay, so in this scenario here, to invite that user, all I do is add that user's contact email. So this is an example of Carrie Ward at trihydro.com. And then I choose the role. So if you wanted to add them as a field tech, you choose the technician and then go ahead and press invite. And what that does is it automatically sends an email to that person's email box and gives them a link for them to click on and sign up. Now, what's important here is they need to do that when they're at a computer so that they can sign up and acknowledge their invitation, and then that'll set their permissions. After they do that, then they can go ahead and use the mobile app, and they will see their site from the app.
Thanks for that. Could you briefly describe the difference in user, technician, and administrator? That's what I see 3 on my page.
Yes, I can. The administrator role is somebody that can change the labs that they use. They can set up different weather stations and do the user administration. So they can add or remove users. And standard user is somebody that can do your typical functions that you would want to do in Fenceline Pro. You can upload lab data, you can download chain of custody, you can look at the alerts and trends and maps and activity logs and reports. The field technician is somebody that just sees the dashboard, and then they have access to the mobile app. We also have a role for the labs. So we have a couple of laboratories that we're working with where they will upload sample data as soon as they process it. And that really streamlines the process. So they have a different role called lab technician. And they only have access to the sample data page where they can upload lab data.
So what's the best role for someone if you're going to have a field technician? I'm assuming it's technician level that can go out, manipulate, deployment and pickup, do the COC, and handle that physical part of it. Is that technician level?
Yeah, that'd probably be the best level, best role for them. But if you are at a standard user level, there's nothing that you can really, quote unquote, screw up in the platform. We've got error handling in here. So if you're trying to load lab data that doesn't match your site or it's the wrong format, it just won't work. You'll get an error on that lets you know of that. So I don't think there's a real danger in putting somebody at that standard user level. And you can always remove them or promote them. You can always change their role if they're finding that whatever function they need to do isn't available.
Okay. Good.
So, Chad, I don't know if you heard me earlier. I think I may have been muted while I was trying to talk, but I was wondering if you could pop back over to that trends page, because when we were looking at your total benzene, we couldn't see the bottom of the screen to see. So here we can. Yeah, and then on that one, I can't see the bottom of your screen, but there is the month, quarter, year to toggle between the different periods that are preset. So Paul, if you're not seeing that, maybe we can do a little one-on-one, but this is what
Nope,
okay.
I found it. Thank you.
Good, good, good. Well, those are great questions. Does anybody else want to chime in?
Hello?
This is Richard from, sorry. You go first, Richard.
This is Richard with SDS at Cherry Point. We're just wondering, is there a plan to implement the barcode scanning on the tubes in the field?
Yeah, great question. We've had a couple of different prototypes that we've looked at, and none of them was really easy to use. And what I mean by that is we had one where we were doing a QR code scanning, and in order to get it to scan just right, you had to stand on your left foot and hold it with your left hand and wink, and it would barely click that QR code. And so it was kind of troublesome in our prototype investigation. The other technology was the RFID codes, and that was easier to scan, but those can be kind of cost prohibitive. You know, they cost a lot more per tube. So, you know, we've looked at a couple of potential solutions. We just haven't found one that we think is going to actually save field techs time and money while in the field. And you know, that tube ID is only 6 digits, so it shouldn't be too hard, but I think that we're still open to a potential solution, and you know, we'll keep looking at what's out there.
Has anybody talked to the tube vendor to see if they can enhance that number so it's easier to scan?
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, you know, Chad, do you want to mention another interesting idea that one of our other users had about possibly having that tube ID in advance so that it was a pick list that they chose from rather than typing it in? We were kind of exploring that idea. I don't know if that makes sense to everyone, but what we had come up was a question from a user who receives a list of the tubes that they are sending to them, sometimes maybe in a form of the actual COC that they were sending them before. And she asked if there was any way that we could import that information prior to the sampling event so that when the user, the field user, is out in the field, they can see that list of tubes and they can scroll or like start typing in the window and then have that list pre-populate so that they can then select the tube ID that they're holding and placing in that moment. Have you guys thought of any ideas about how something like that might work for you?
We've talked about it at Cherry Point, but thought scanning the tube would be the easiest, most efficient way to go. So if that number could be enhanced so it's scannable, that would be preferred.
Okay. Do you use that?
Sorry.
That's
Another
okay.
thought is the lab sending the original data for the tubes right to you guys and pre-filling it with that original spreadsheet. So we're not entering any numbers.
That's also interesting. You mean just rather than them even selecting it while they're out in the field, just having it go straight to the COC?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a cool idea too. I think the only concern I would have with that particular, and of course we probably want to give that more thought and kind of toss it around more with some of our other users, but my first thing right off the bat is, would that, I guess, eliminate a confirmation step that is necessary in the field? Or would it potentially introduce an opportunity for an error when the user, puts a different tube there rather than what we had planned for them to put at a particular station?
I think you could do it with a confirm step. Just confirm this is the right tube number,
Cool.
and then if it's not, have the field entry so you can still enter in a different tube number if you needed to.
Okay.
But we can play around with it.
Well, those are great ideas. I think we have some other questions, Chad.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Please keep them coming. I've got a list of questions here. So, Carrie, is there a way to edit the samples in the mobile app?
There is, and I'm assuming that you are referring to samples that are being placed.
Yes.
If that is the case, we actually have a slide on that. I don't know, Chad, if you can cue it up.
Can you go ahead and talk us through it?
Yeah, I sure can. So if you can see on his screen right there, we're looking at tube 01 on the right screenshot. For a collected, if you accidentally clicked that clock button, you could swipe to the right and it would allow you to delete that collection. So say you weren't ready to actually collect on DS11, but you hit that clock button, you could swipe to the right and then remove that collection time and then wait and move on to the next one. For placed, however, you can swipe to the right and it will give you a little icon that looks like an edit icon. And when you click that, then it'll come back up to your entry screen where you can change the time or you can correct the tube ID. And then also if there we go. Okay, so that's the edit button there in the middle screen that I was telling you about. If you click that, then it'll pop back up your tube ID number and give you a little scroll bar for the time and date where you can change that. The one on the left, the screenshot on the left shows a delete button. So if you're swiping to the right, then that just allows you to delete that placement altogether.
Yep, that's right. Swipe left to delete a placement, swipe right to edit the tube ID and time. And then also on the collect, swipe left to undo a collection.
Right.
Cool.
So one thing about the collected is you can undo it if you accidentally hit the collection button and recorded that time and date, but you can't change the tube ID on that because that is information that was previously loaded.
Right.
In that case, you could
change a tube number by emailing you guys.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, next question then. When you say long term for additional constituents, how long of a term and what's your time frame for those?
I think we're waiting to get a little bit more information about what other constituents. We know one is it 1,3-butadiene is coming from Canada. Their rule won't be rolled out until June or July, and so I think from that point, once we have all of our information, we've kind of made plans for that design. I think we'll be looking at about a 3 to 6 month time frame.
Okay, how are the notes added in the mobile app?
That's a good question. And by notes, I'm assuming that they're referring to the activity log. And so that, oh, did I hear somebody chiming in? Oh, okay. So on your home page of the app, there you go, Chad, just brought it back up. When you first log into the app, you have the sample button and the activity log button. So all you need to do to enter a note there is click that activity log button, and then it'll take you to a screen where you can add a log. And I think that button is down at the bottom, kind of hidden by that red bar. It says add a log, and then you can type in this free field where I typed new activity, and then you just save it. And that goes into the database when you upload. Does that answer the question? I think so.
I believe so. Okay, I've got a couple more on the editing the sample tubes after they've already been uploaded. And, you know, we've talked about this as a team to be able to have you folks edit those yourselves. You know, if that's something that is going to improve the workflow. Currently, that does need to go through our support team. So you can email support@fencelinepro.com or submit a support ticket and say, hey, I was out there at June 1st and I put in tube ID 1024 and it should have been 1025. And we can update that in our database. But we may be able to expose that editing functionality to you folks further down the road. I think what we need to do is look into the method 325 and see if that is a valid workflow to be able to change the sample information after you've already sampled.
Yeah, and Chad, I wanted to highlight a couple steps in your workflow as you were walking through that whole sample collection process. And part of the reason why we, just like Chad said, I think part of the reason why we avoided that edited ability once data's already been uploaded is you have the opportunity to check through everything before you upload. And so I know going through each of those steps, you want to be able to see what you entered. And so, Chad, if you could pop over to one of those collection or add sample screenshots that you had. So here, yeah, both of these are perfect. So you can see where I wrote tube 01, tube 02 on that second screenshot. That's actually your tube ID, right? And so if you were to verify each one of those before you hit upload, that'd be a great opportunity to check that, because when you are placing, you can go back and edit those before you've uploaded, right? So placing is where you can edit your tube ID. As you're scrolling through each of those, you can verify all that information before you go on to the next one, or you can also verify it once you're completely done with all of the stations and ready to move on. And so I think that's probably a really important step to remember before uploading.
Good stuff. I've got another question again on the barcode scanning of the sample tubes. One thing that we've also heard from a couple of the tube vendors is that they don't even use barcode scanning in their own labs. So that's something, if they can't figure out the best technology, then we're not going to try and reinvent the wheel if they can't figure it out correctly. So I think that it's something we're going to keep monitoring and keep working with them. But that's where we're at right now, is to type in the tube ID. Another thing that can be considered here is when you put your cursor or you tap your finger into this field, you could say tube 4, and you could do speech to text in here, and it would write out tube 4. Or if it was just all numeric and you said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would put those digits in there for you. So that's one thing that maybe your techs want to try out too. They can do speech to text in there.
Chad, Carrie, just two quick questions if I could. I don't see the chat thing around. I wrote them in here.
That's all right, Paul, go ahead.
Thanks. Two things, and then that's it, I promise. Do you have a generic,
430, 406.
a generic procedure or method or anything that we can use as a baseline, if we wanted to redo or rebuild our in-house procedures? That's one question. The other one is, if we question a data point, what's the best way to address that? Is it just contacting the lab or somebody in particular?
You mean like a reported result?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say encourage you to get with your lab, and if they find if they reanalyze or edit the report in any way, just have them shoot us over that revised report once you two come to an agreement on it, and we can get that data fixed in the database.
Yeah.
Yeah, as with
Okay,
our
well,
other sampling, yeah, as with some of our other sampling programs, if you feel like that EDD needs to be reissued, you can work with the lab to get that updated version, and then we'll pull that old EDD out of the database and then upload your revised one for you.
Okay. Yeah, I questioned one data point from before I started with this program, but I will contact that lab.
Okay, excellent. So,
and then the procedure?
yes, I'm not sure I fully understood your question. Do you mean on the sample method?
Well, on the whole system, the whole program, I didn't know if you guys had a good foundational procedure, including maybe a little more detail on the lab end and things like that. You know, it's just a question. I don't know if there's a generic one out there.
You know, I think I know what you're getting at. Our air group has provided some sampling operating or standard operating procedures for the sample method protocol, and I think we have one of those guys online that might be able to speak to it. Jeremy, would you like to answer that question, or maybe chat with Paul offline? Okay, yeah, I think maybe we lost Jeremy. But Jeremy's our resident Fenceline Pro guru as far as the rule goes and the actual field work.
What's his last name?
His name is Jeremy Sell.
Spell it?
S-E-L-L. Well, I can put you in touch with him after this call, Paul.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Hey, this is Ryan at Cherry Point. Did you guys say that the techs can take videos and upload them in their activity logs? I'm not sure how to do that, if that's true.
Yeah, we did. And that's an excellent question. I don't know that so you can take a video from your phone, but you can't upload it into the app. The way that you would upload photos or videos to associate with your activity through the website.
Okay.
Chad, do you want to show them?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Carrie's right. The ability to attach files to the activity logs is only on the website side, but you could type in your text information and then browse to a file. If you've copied it off your SD card from the camera, you can pull it into Fenceline Pro here, and then when you're viewing this particular record, the associated document would show up for download right here in this column.
Okay, thank you for that.
Cool.
Bye.
Okay, I've got another question, and we've seen this before. Can my technician enter the placement tube ID prior to going out on site, and then be able to edit that tube ID and time while on site?
Yeah, I've seen that question before too. And you could do that. There's no reason why you couldn't, because like you said in the last half of that question, you can edit the time. So what's happening when you are entering your tube ID and clicking save is it's stamping that date and time that you click save. And so that's That's why, as far as workflow goes, we say, enter that information, click save when you're there at the station. If you were to do it prior to going out into the field, you would then have to edit that time.
What if you just, can you click tube to tube to tube and not click save until you're in the field? Enter all your tube numbers in the office and then get into them and click placed and save out in the field.
I'm not sure about that. I haven't actually tried that function before, but I will and get back to you on that.
That might work.
Okay. That was Paul with that second question, right?
That was Paul with that answer.
Okay. Oh, with the answer, yes. Okay.
Possible answer.
Okay.
All right, those are fantastic questions. Please keep them coming. We are all. Is there what?
Room for one more question?
Yeah, let's go.
Is there a certain sequence we have to do through the download, view, and email those COCs, or can we just email that COC? I mean, yeah, we want to look it over, or is there a certain sequence?
Yeah, you can actually do both. You can download the COC and review it, and then when you click the email button, that email's going to your laboratory. We have that preset for them to receive that. And so
I don't get what the three choices are. I know, and I'm not seeing them. If you could, I closed my program. Sorry, but there seems to be 3 icons there.
Yeah, let me address that, Paul. The left one is to download the chain of custody. The middle one is going to go away because that had a previous goal in mind, but that is no longer relevant. So in our next release, that middle one is going to go away. And then the far right one is to email it directly to the lab themselves.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we've got a minute left here. We just want to say, hey, we're around. So if, we'll follow up with a couple of these other lingering questions with you guys. We do plan on addressing the tube ID concerns. We're hearing you guys that it may be a little tricky to get the right tube IDs in there and the dates and times. So we'll keep brainstorming better ways to improve that process. Contact us, give us a call. Carrie and myself are available. Send support an email. But if you want to see us in person, and we can have dinner or something. We're going to be at AFPM down in Texas there in October at their environmental conference. We typically have a booth and a good presence from our air and process team. So if you want to talk software, you can find us, or if you want to talk regulations, you can find Jeremy and his peers there. And then we plan on doing another user group meeting. And as we're growing our customer base, we'd like to see potentially have you guys out to Fort Collins. Tri-Hydro just recently opened up a new office out there in Fort Collins. We've got space for people. So, maybe we'll have people out for that next user group meeting to do this in person and see you guys face to face. If you do have follow-ups on what you'd like to see out of the next user group meeting, again, all ears, let us know. Just like to finish up by thanking you all for being a valued Fenceline Pro customer. Thank you for your time and your feedback. And that's it for me. And Carrie, did you have anything to finish up with?
Nope. Just to second the thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye.